So our consumer confidence report is a document that we put out every year, that we release every year in partnership with Cobb County-Marietta Water Authority. It basically contains important information about the quality of your drinking water, including detailed report in there as to what is in your drinking water and all the federally mandated tests and everything like that. We've got there on the screen the QR code that if you're not in person, you can scan the QR code or go to the website to actually get a copy of this. If you want to look through it later on in your time, in your free time, then you can do that as well with that. It is pretty technical and it is kind of confusing for layman's terms and for those looking at it going, I have no idea what any of this stuff means, which is why we brought in the folks who actually know what they're talking about with this and can understand this a little bit better. So I'm going to turn it over to, well, in just a second, I'm going to turn it over. So why do we partner with Cobb County-Marietta Water Authority? If you look at this picture, so this is like a human man-made water cycle. And the blue part is all of the drinking water, and then the brown part is all of the wastewater. Here at Cobb County Water System, we take care of all of that brown stuff. So we treat all of the wastewater, and when it leaves your home, all the piping, all of that stuff is coming from us. And we maintain some of the pipes that are the delivery system for the drinking water, but we don't treat the drinking water. So that whole top line up there of processing and withdrawing from the lakes and rivers, the drinking water, that is what Cobb County-Marietta Water Authority does. So that was why we partner with them on this CCR, that they're the ones who come up with these numbers and they're the ones that actually treat the drinking water. So it makes a little bit more sense that we've got them in this as well as bringing in. So I'm going to turn it over to them. This is Karen, and I will let Karen Osborne, I'll let Karen introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about what she does.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Osborne. I'm the Laboratory Division Manager for Cobb County-Marietta Water Authority. I've been with the Water Authority for 31 years, and we are the wholesale provider of drinking water. So we sell water to Cobb County Water System, City of Marietta, City of Smyrna, and then some other systems. I didn't see it change on the screen. Okay. All right, so we have two sources of water, Allatoona Lake and the Chattahoochee River. We're going to focus on the water coming from Allatoona Lake because I'm only going to talk about one of our treatment plants, and that's the Wyckoff treatment plant that's located in Ackworth. So this is a schematic of the treatment process, and I'm going to break it down into just parts because this is just too crazy on the screen for anybody to follow this. So we withdraw the water at Lake Allatoona, and we have a treatment possibility of PAC, which is powdered activated carbon, and we can use that if there's a concern with taste and odors. Something like geosmin, that's a naturally occurring compound that's organisms make that compound, and it's not pleasant when it's in the water. So we have the pack that we can use to remove that. Geosmin is something that you find in mushrooms and beets and spinach, and it gives them that earthy flavor. So it's nothing that's harmful, but just don't like it as a taste in our water. So this is our actual intake structure on Lake Allatoona. And then the water comes from that to the treatment plant, and we add some chlorine dioxide to the water, and that's for oxidizing. It can oxidize taste and odors also. It can oxidize iron and manganese, and it is like a pre-disinfectant for removing harmful organisms. And then we also add alum in this part, and we mix up the chemicals real good with the water. And here is our Wyckoff treatment plant. Kind of to the center, up a little bit, are the basins where I'm going to be talking about the flocculation and sedimentation part of the treatment process. So the water comes into the flocculators and it's given some time to slowly move, and the water continues to mix and the particles get larger and larger. So that's what the alum does. It causes things to clump together so that it can remove the dirt and organics and just all kinds of stuff that we want to take out of the water. And then it moves into sedimentation. So it moves through these basins and the particles are heavy, so they sink to the bottom. And then we take the clean water off the top of that. And we add the hypochlorite at that phase, which is chlorine for disinfection and of the organisms. So here is a picture of our basin and the flocculation chambers at the treatment plant. So then it moves, after the hypochlorite was added, it moves to the filtration process, and that takes place inside of the building. In the springtime, summer, fall, depending on the water temperature, we send part of that water to our GAC facility. And GAC stands for granular activated carbon, and we use that to remove organics, naturally occurring organics from the water to help us decrease disinfection byproducts. And GAC can also remove other chemicals and things. It is capable of removing some personal care products and other things that can be in the water. It mixes back with the water coming from the filters, because we usually only send like 10 to 30% of our water through the GAC facility, and then we mix it back with the filtered water. And that's a picture of our filters. You can't see much because the filters are down below the water, but there's a layer of anthracite and then sand below that, and the water goes down through these filters, and the clean water is contained in the pipes below that. This is a picture of our GAC vessels, and these are really large. A tractor trailer truck comes in to fill those, and also to take the spent GAC from these vessels back to be refurbished so that we can reuse it. How tall would you say these are, William?
They're at least 25 foot tall.
25 feet, yeah. Yeah, they're big. So we can treat a good bit of water with these. So after it completes filtration and it's been through the GAC, then we're adding our final chemicals to the water. So the fluorosilicic acid is fluoride that's added for preventing cavities in children's teeth. And we add hypochlorite, which that's the chlorine that we add as a residual so that it helps keep things from going out in the pipes, out in the distribution system and in people's homes. And then it all gets mixed up real well and goes into the clear wells for contact time, make sure that it's all mixed and the chlorine has had its effect. And then it gets pumped out to our transmission system, which are very large pipes. And then we get distributed to our customers in their distribution systems. Now, one other part of the treatment process that I want to mention is, when we take all that stuff out of the water, well, where does it go? What do we do with it? So the stuff that sinks to the bottom of the basins, is really thick and it's sludge, and it goes to our residuals management. And then also when we backwash our filters, all that water that comes from the filters goes also to our residuals management. And some of that that's pressed out of there comes back to Cobb County Water System sewers. Some of it goes back to the head of the plant and recycle, and the sludge is actually spread on farms. And I think it's North Georgia area that we do all that spreading. So let's move on to the actual consumer confidence report and the tables that are on there. The total contaminants tested for in 2021 was 106. So of those 106, there were only 14 that were detected. And that's what's included on your consumer confidence report. There are a lot more things that are actually tested every year, but they don't get included on the report because they're not there. So here's an example of one of the contaminants that's listed on the report, and this is the fluoride. The unit is ppm, or that's milligrams per liter. MCL, that's the maximum contaminant level, and that's basically what the Safe Drinking Water Act says. That's the maximum amount of fluoride that we can have in the water, and we don't come anywhere close to what that MCL is. You can see the detected level is only 0.89, and we typically average around 0.7 at our treatment plants for the amount of fluoride that's added. And that's monitored multiple times during the day to make sure the levels are where they need to be. So I'm going to just work down the table on the contaminants table. And the next thing we have on there is lead. And you'll notice that it was last tested in 2020. And the reason for that is we are on reduced monitoring for lead and copper. They get tested at the same time. And we are very fortunate that our system, as far as I'm aware and as has been investigated by all the water systems, there's no lead service lines in our system. Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, they actually have lead service lines. So they have a lot more serious issues with lead in the water and how they're treated. The source of the lead that we find in our drinking water typically comes from people's copper pipes that lead solder was used to put them together. And that was banned in 1986. They can't use lead solder, although I would suspect that probably some plumbers continue to use it, maybe for a little while afterwards, getting out of their storerooms or whatever. So, there may be a little bit of lead after that. But so our testing levels for lead over the years have been really low. So they've allowed us to go on reduced monitoring, which is every 3 years. So we will be doing lead and copper testing again in 2023. The lead and copper rule is going to be changed in the near future. And so you may see that testing is going to increase due to the new rule change, and you'll see it being tested more often. And like I said, copper is not a problem either. Next thing is nitrate nitrite. That comes from fertilizers. We all put fertilizers. We like our pretty green grass and everything, but that runs off and it gets into the waterways, which we withdraw water out of. And so there is a certain amount of nitrate nitrite that is in our water, unfortunately. But you can see the MCL is 10. Our level is a 0.74, so it's still pretty low. Moving on to disinfection byproducts. So there's THMs and HAAs, and you can see the MCLs are 80 and 60, and our levels detected 51 and 34. So they're relatively low. And, our treatment processes, we do everything we can to reduce those disinfection byproducts as much as possible. And they come from the chlorine reacting with natural organic chemicals that are in the water. So the TOC that you see listed in this chart that we have to maintain a level below a certain amount so that we decrease those disinfection byproducts. Chlorite, that's the next one, and MCL is 1, and you can see our detected level is a 0.42. Chlorite comes from the chlorine dioxide that's added to the water, but it still results in a low amount that's not an issue. And then the final in the disinfection byproducts is our chlorine, which, of course, we do have to add that to the water for disinfection, and the maximum residual detection level is 4, and we have a 2. at the treatment plants, we added around 1.8 to 2.0. And out in the distribution system, it can be found anywhere from 0 to around 2. And 2 will be where if you're closer to the treatment plant, you're going to have a higher chlorine residual. And the further away you get and warm water and low water usage, you can end up with no chlorine. But we do test out in the distribution systems to make sure there isn't, things growing because of that. Moving on to turbidity, and turbidity doesn't have health effects, but we are required to test for that because it lets you know how clear the water is, how much we've removed out of it, and that we need to keep it below a certain level to ensure that disinfection and all the other things have functioned the way they're supposed to. And then finally, we have the microbiological contaminants, and that's the total coliform and E. coli. So there were some detects of total coliform. It is a group of organisms that are naturally occurring in the environment. They're everywhere. You can probably get it off of this table, off your hands or whatever. So it's a pretty common organism, but they think if you detected that, it still could indicate there's other things there with it. So that's why it's used as an indicator organism. And we always do rechecks if we have a positive, and because the test that we use is so sensitive that it can pick up if somebody happens to touch the lid, or if it's on a dirty faucet that hasn't been wiped down enough, it'll turn positive. So that's the same thing with the E. coli is more of a concern. But as long as the rechecks come back fine, then there's not a concern about something contaminating the water. So moving on to unregulated contaminants, and these are things that are not part of the Safe Drinking Water Act, but things that are of concern, health concerns, something new that they've figured out that maybe we need to start regulating it and start testing for it and seeing, what kind of issues we have and how do we prepare to treat it and all those kind of things. So of the unregulated contaminants, the only thing that was tested in 2021 were the PFAS. And those are something you hear them talk about in the news. And so what are they? So they are man-made manufactured chemicals that are composed of mostly carbon and fluorine. And those bonded together is a really strong bond. So once you create these, they call them forever chemicals because it's really hard to break these things down. They seemed like great products, provided properties very desirable, such as stain resistance, waterproofing, nonstick coating, firefighting foam. They are in fast food wrappers, microwave popcorn bags, nonstick cookware, think Teflon, waterproof and stain-resistant carpets and clothing, think Scotchgard, Gore-Tex, all these things that are, fantastic products, but they all have PFAS in them. It's in your shampoo, your makeup, dental floss, paints, varnishes, Sharpie markers, Post-it notes, ski wax. So needless to say, there's so many sources of these compounds. And they are tested in nanograms per liter or parts per trillion, which is really, really a tiny unit. To give you an example, a nanogram per liter is equivalent to 1 second in nearly 32,000 years, or 1 ounce of water in 7.5 billion gallons of water. So that's 4 months worth of water production at the Water Authority. All that water, only an ounce of it, that's considered a part per trillion. Or traveling just 6 inches out of a 93 million mile journey toward the sun. Little numbers, just a little bit, but they do have health effects. So that's where the big concern over these come. So how are we exposed to them? So first of all, you have industries that manufacture these PFAS chemicals, They create the firefighting foam. The firefighting foam is used mostly just practicing. Firefighters are practicing putting out fires at airports because the jet fuel is hard to put out. And then it rains and that water runs off into our streams. The chemicals, they have a waste stream that goes to wastewater plants. And our wastewater plants aren't designed to remove PFAS. That's not been something that's been part of how they've been designed. The PFAS are put into all those consumer products, and those consumer products, they can be dumped down the drain, or those products go to landfills, and then the landfills leach out this PFAS, and all those goes back to our water, to our streams. And so there's multiple ways that you're exposed to these PFAS, with direct use of the consumer products and from, just the environment. So I wanted to mention something I had found where the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, had tested some food for PFAS. And I thought this was quite enlightening. So I'm not going to go through all these, but a roasted chicken thigh tested 180 parts per trillion for the PFAS. Out of the 4 PFAS that were detected at our one treatment plant, the highest level we had was a 3.4. And this is 180. Low-fat chocolate milk, 154 parts per trillion. But the one that really got me is the iced chocolate cake, 17,640 parts per trillion. Makes me wonder about eating chocolate cake anymore. I don't know why that in particular is high, but that was kind of surprising. But needless to say, it just kind of shows you how they've just permeated our environment, and they're getting into everything. So something to keep in mind is anything we put down our drains, spray on our yards, dump on the ground has the potential to become one of the detected contaminants on our consumer confidence report. We're all in this together. We need everybody to be aware of this, that they have a direct effect on what's in your drinking water. So I like this little quote: "The health of our waters is a principal measure of how we live on the land." And I'm going to turn it back over to Angie.
Thank you, Karen. And as you can see, that's why I wanted to have them in here, because can explain it a lot better than I can. But so we get a lot of questions, like what Karen was saying, of what we put on our land and what we put on the ground does affect our water, and it affects our drinking water and everything. So one of the questions that we get a lot of is, what can I do? Just the average citizen, the average person floating around here. We're shifting around here. Just leave it on the PowerPoint. There we go. So what can you do as an average citizen in the community? Well, the water system has actually got quite a few programs that we have that are run and work off of volunteer time and volunteers. And one of those is our storm drain marking. Exactly what Karen was talking about, when things run off the land and they run off of your yard and down the street, it picks up everything and it goes into that storm drain. And in Cobb County, all of our storm drains go directly to the streams. They do not go to the treatment plant to get cleaned up or anything like that. And of course, that's where they pull that drinking water from, is from that stream. So the fertilizer that she was talking about, all of that comes up, it goes down that storm drain into the stream and gets pulled back out into the drinking water. So we have a storm drain marking program that we go around and distribute educational materials to all of the houses in the neighborhood, and then we put those little blue medallions on the storm drains that say "No dumping, drains to creek," because a lot of people don't realize that that's where it goes, and that the problem with that. And we also have part of that is things like cigarette butts, education of don't throw your butts out. Pet waste, picking up after your pet, because that's the E. coli that can end up in the streams and in the drinking water for them. So educating the public that where that waste goes and where that trash goes. And we also have we have actually out here in the rain garden, outside of the lab, we have a gorgeous rain garden. And we help teach and educate the public about rain gardens and the importance of them. And what the rain garden does is that when it rains, instead of having all of that storm water run off and go into the storm drain, and the rain garden actually captures the rain. And outside here, we have not irrigated that, used the irrigation system on that for probably 7 or 8 years. Even the big drought we had years ago, we didn't have to pull the irrigation system out of that. It works off of having native plants, plants that are used to living here, ones that can adapt to the heat, adapt to the dry summers, and those plants help to suck up that rainwater and filter that rainwater before it can even through the ground get to our streams. And so it helps reduce that runoff as well as filtering the water some. And we do stream cleanups. So exactly what you're saying, some of that stuff that you would be amazed at some of the stuff we find in the streams. But the things like the Teflon and all of that, those things that the chemicals are leaching off of, that could be leaching off of into the stream, we help get all of that trash out of the stream. Tires, bicycles, shopping carts, TVs, all kinds of great stuff that we find in the streams that we actually go in, you get in the stream, pull them out, and get them to where they need to be. I know that's the look that I give to of what when we find some of these things. We also have adopt a stream monitoring, where we have community scientists out in the community that actually monitor their streams for a variety of things. Like the chemical monitoring is we test the pH of the water streams, we test conductivity, we test the temperature of it, and those indicators can show if there might be a problem. We've got guidelines within the state that those streams should be under, that if it's outside of those guidelines, just like the guidelines that we have with that they have for the drinking water, we've got those with the stream as well. And if it's outside of that, then that can trigger, hey, there might be something wrong here. There might be something upstream of us that's going on. So that helps to catch it before it gets to be too big of a problem and to be aware of it. We also do bacterial monitoring, and that helps to test for the E. coli in the stream. We actually have had some really good finds. I guess good is not the right word. Some really good finds with some of our monitors of, I like to tell the story of, we had somebody who was cleaning their yard of their dog poop and just tossing it in the creek. And it was like their teenage child was out cleaning up the dog poop at the end of every day. And they were just tossing it over the fence into the stream. And one of our bacterial monitors actually picked that up and figured that out. And it was just a matter of education. It was just they didn't know better. And it was a kid and they didn't know anything. So educated them and the stream went back to being fixed. So not only does it affect the drinking water, but all of those animals that live in the stream. And I mean, I've got kids that play in the stream. And so, things like that, fishing, and it all ends up in the Chattahoochee River or Lake Allatoona. So keeping those bodies of water healthy as well. And that's our bags that they actually collected in a little bag and then tested out of that bag. So macroinvertebrate monitoring. We actually will teach you how to identify bugs and critters that are in the streams, and you get in and you go and you look at them. And what that helps us is that healthy streams have certain animals and the macroinvertebrates that live in that stream. And if it's not a healthy stream, they're not going to be there. So if you go and you're looking in your stream and you're seeing all of these great critters in there and all these great bugs and everything, and then all of a sudden you're not, then that can indicate something's wrong with this stream. Or if you go and you start looking and they're not there, that can be an indication that there might be something wrong with that stream and it's not a healthy stream. So all of our, and all of these programs are run through Georgia Adopt a Stream. And so you actually take your data that you come up with and you submit it to the state, and they keep an eye on everything and make sure everything's within the levels and make sure that everything's still looking good in the state, and they get trigger warnings if something is out of whack for that stream. And we have visual monitoring. If you look down here at the bottom right, you can kind of see that picture is like what a stream should look like. And so you're out looking, does it have cover to help keep the stream cooler? is that riparian zone, so the like natural area on each side of the stream that helps to keep the stream bed from eroding, is that still there? Is it the proper distance that it should be to help keep that stream healthy? Because one of the things that those do, it helps keep the stream bank from eroding, but it also helps to filter the groundwater that comes in, and helps to filter that before it even gets to the stream, which is why that riparian buffer there is so important. So you go out and you look and kind of monitor the stream, and you can see them measuring it and seeing how deep it is, how deep has the stream bank changed at all? Is it bigger? Is it smaller? That kind of thing of, are we having a lot of runoff in the stream? So all of those, like I said, all of those are run through Adopt a Stream. So, but those are some of the things that you can do as a regular citizen, a regular person who lives in this community, that you can help us with and help in turn the Cobb County-Marietta Water Authority, so that when they pull the water out, it is healthier water and it's not as, they're not having to do as much with it. That, so, and some of that stuff that is not regulated, it won't be there, hopefully. So do you have any questions? What do you do about like ducks and geese waste and all of that? It's not a whole lot you can do about it. I mean, because especially like I have seen places that it's bad. I mean, you could pick it up if you wanted to. That would be great, because that is one of the things that you've probably heard of, algae blooms in the creek, of when you get too much E. coli and bacteria in there, that algae grows and it can be dangerous. That animal waste and fertilizer and stuff is what causes those. Um, the good thing though about that is that because it's, well, I say because it's natural, it in theory should be natural. Who knows what those ducks and geese are actually eating, but it's different than pet waste. So if you think about animals out, so the ducks and geese and deer and things like that, they're eating things that are in the environment and they're returning it to the environment. So there's, when we feed our pets, what we feed our pets is not quite as natural as what like the animals are eating. And the reason I said it's natural, hopefully, you don't know what they're eating, but it's more natural than what we feed our pets. We've got chemicals in the food that we give to our dogs and cats and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the problem of what would cause, it's more the pet waste than that natural animal waste. Right, yes. So that's a great question. So in the summertime, what do we have to, what do they, I say we, not we, you, what do they have to do at the Water Authority to treat it a little bit better with, if there's gasoline and things like that?
Yeah, so for that, really and honestly, there is a lot more boat traffic, but there's a lot more water. As you notice with Lake Allatoona, it's at 840 elevation during the summertime months, which is a lot more boat traffic and things of that nature. In the wintertime, the Corps operates Lake Allatoona for flood control. So during the winter times, that's where they'll drop it up to 17 feet. So all that to say, basically dilution is the solution. So a lot of boating and sea-doos and those kind of things, they are efficient. They're getting a lot better with that. There's still going to be some contaminants, but there's a lot more water, and that it's not really affecting anything on that side of things. So
That's a good question. So I actually have a question for you too. How much water do y'all treat in a day? Like, or roughly, I know you can't give it exact, but what's like your treatment level?
It depends on what time of the year it is. So yesterday was 87 million gallons per day. That's between both water treatment plants. So that's with Wyckoff plant that was shown in the slides is right around the 48 to 50 million gallons a day range.
Okay.
And then Oral's the East Cobb plant
Okay.
is picking up the rest at this point.
Interesting. Like I know how much we use in Cobb County and how much which is about 55 million gallons per day. So which is a huge amount of water if you think about it. So we definitely, Cobb County Water System definitely gets the vast majority of their water treatment and the water that they sell. So, any other questions? Does the chlorinated water in swimming pools cause problems? Well, there are actually regulations for when you empty out a swimming pool or when you release it, it has to either go straight into the sewer system, so not down the storm drain. It has to go into the waste system, so like a sink or something like that. So they have to dump it in that. Or there has to be a certain amount of land between you and a natural body of water. So like between your backyard and the stream. And what that does is it's that natural filtration system of it going through the ground, and the plants will help to filter that. It's like if you think of a septic tank, it's kind of the same premise of a septic tank, that it's getting the natural filtration system out of that. So it shouldn't be any, by the time it gets to the stream, the water, if it's going that way, then it shouldn't be, the chlorine's filtered out naturally. Or send it down the sewer drain, not the storm drain, the sewer drain. So, yeah, those are great questions. Thanks. Yeah, excellent questions. Do we have anything in the chat box? Question? Oh, I can access the chat box here. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions in the chat box. So thank y'all very, very much for coming. And thank you for coming. And those online, thank you for joining us. Our next Lunch and Learn next month is on rebates that we offer with the water system. So if you are Cobb County Water System customers, I encourage you to join too. And it actually is completely virtual because we've got some more tech stuff that we want to show you and do that kind of thing. So that one is actually 100% virtual. If you want a copy of the Consumer Confidence Report from home, you can see it on our website, cobbwater.org. Or pick them up. They're in the water system lobby over here if you want to grab one out of there, if you're over here too as well. So, but thank y'all very much for joining us, and thank you so much for helping out. And it makes sense to me now too. So, so thank y'all and have a great day.